I'm going to take you step by step through installation of a core keeper, also known as a catcher, in core tube used with the SDI Vibe Core D and the Vibe Core Mini, all sizes and models. We're going to cover the installation of a keeper in plastic tube, which involves the addition of a strip of VHB tape and only 3 rivets. They can also be installed using 6 rivets, only rivets. With that method, you really need to be careful. Well, with either method, you need to be really careful not to crack the plastic when you're crimping the valves flat or the rivets flat with the pliers. When installing a keeper in an aluminum tube, the tape won't be effective. You'll have to use the 6 rivets. So I'm showing it to you in the plastic just because there's the extra step and it's very similar. Keepers are only needed when you're sampling loose sediments. When the core tube doesn't penetrate to firm sediment, that'll put a plug in the end of the core tube. If you get a plug in the end of the core tube of a hard material, it helps hold the sample in, so it's not as critical. But when you get something that's wet or a sand that's clean, that really doesn't have significant silt or clay to hold the sample in, it'll exit the bottom of the tube. So, or if you're not going all the way to pre-impoundment. The first thing you need to know is if you're using aluminum tube, you have to get the end deburred well. So in your toolkit, there's going to be one of these deburring tools, and you'll just go around it enough times to cut this edge off that's inside. You can see it kind of curling up maybe there. It takes off the extra edge there, and then that's where you'll want to install it on a fairly clean surface like that. Now we're going to move on to the plastic tube. The plastic tube, we use the VHB tape just to help prevent cracking, just because the plastic is definitely more brittle. And you can also get a little bit of melting when you cut the plastic on the end where you cut it. You get a little bit of melting, so you'll want to break all that away. You don't need to actually use the deburring tool to deburr it. And then what you're going to do is take a piece of the VHB tape and pretty much you're going to want to have cleaned this area already with some alcohol before you try to put the VHB tape on. And I'm touching the VHB tape all over the place. You're going to want to try not to do that. I was trying to get a little end started there, but I think it's just going to make it worse. So we're going to place this inside, trying just to touch the edges of the plastic. It's got a plastic backing on it. It's a clear tape. VHB is for very high bond. It's a 3M product. And just press it right along the bottom edge of the tube, like that. And probably, since we're using some rivets, having it completely meet in the middle is not critical. You don't want it to overlap though. You just don't want to add extra thickness to the wall of the tube. And then what you're going to want to do is get a little bit of it started. And you can usually like pull on it a little bit and get the piece to come off. And press it down in there and get it started. And then you're going to take the keeper, which is going to be cut probably for aluminum tube, which has a bigger inner diameter. So it's going to be too big for the plastic tube. It's going to, if you put it in, it will try to overlap. And you don't want that overlap there, because that just adds bulk to your tube wall. So you'll take off, should be about 1/4 of an inch on each edge of the keeper. Kind going to bend that back again because that'll straighten the little crimped edge out. And then you'll put it into here. And just kind of double check, make sure it's not going to overlap. A little separation's fine, but the overlap is not good. So what you're going to do here then is try to make it a little bit smaller for a moment, and grab the edge of the tube, or grab the edge of the tape, and pull just enough out, and then take your keeper. And really be careful when you're working with the keepers because they are very, very sharp. They have sharp edges, so you'll end up with little cuts, big cuts. And get it started, and what you want to do is make sure that that crimped edge is right on top of that wall there. You want it to be pressed right up against the wall. And you're going to keep doing that all the way around. Make sure, if you can see, it's right there against the wall. And then just keep doing that all the way around. Press it tightly. And the reason I do the rivets, I think our manual says that it's okay to just go ahead and use the VHB tape, but I don't want to get down there and pull a tube and find out that the keeper has come out. So I had a couple of extra rivets, three rivets, just to make sure. So now you can see all the way around that is against the edge of the tube, and you can see your tape in there. Now what we're going to do is add a couple of rivets, and to do that you're going to put this is your keeper retainer for drilling, and what it does is helps press the keeper up to the side of the tube while you drill. So you're going to put it in like that, press it down there so everything's pressed in tight. And then you're going to take the packet of rivets that's in your toolkit, should be in the big baggie with all the other spare pieces that are in the baggie, and should have a couple of these, this size drill bit in there. And these are what the rivets look like. They're aluminum rivets, so they're crushable by hand. And you're going to put the drill bit into the drill. And you are going to drill 3 holes, and you're going to drill it into the side of the keeper retainer. It's an expendable item. You can use it many, 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 many times before it will fall apart from being drilled through. And you can see through in the plastic where the seam is. The aluminum, you just have to kind of keep track and maybe mark where they are. But for this purpose, we're going to drill in maybe about ½ an inch up from the edge of the tube, not from the edge of the keeper retainer, but from the actual edge of the tube, about, maybe not quite ½ an inch up, and just right, 1/4 to ½ an inch from each end of the seam here. Those will be 2 of our holes. And just being careful to drill high speed, so that you don't, the plastic can crack. And that's a hole through, and that's all it needs to do. And then the other one, right about there. And that's in. It doesn't take long to get it all the way through. And then what we're going to do, just so it doesn't try to pull out here, is put one more in right about on the other side, 180 degrees around from the seam. And that's it. It's just, that's all it takes. And then what you're going to do is pull this keeper retainer back out. And then the edge, you can kind of gently tap the edge down just a bit to make sure that it is right there against the edge of the tube. And then what we're going to do is take the flat end and put it from the inside of the hole through to the outside. You see it comes out just a little bit. Take the pliers and make sure that you're on the rivet. So you're going to be on the rivet on the inside and on the outside, and just crush, trying not to get the rivet. Just try to get you can get the edges of the rivet. You don't want to get the plastic. You get the edges of the rivet, and it'll usually crush kind of nicely. And you can see how that is in there on the inside. Right there. And then the outside is crushed enough to where it's not going to fit back through the hole. And it may be sticking up a little bit, but... And then you would do the same thing with the other two. I'm not going to go ahead and finish all of them, probably, but you do the same thing. I'll do one more. And just poke it through that hole. And again, if you don't want to use the VHB tape, you can go with rivets all the way around. This stuff drills pretty nicely, but again, it's more likely to crack than the aluminum is. And then just carefully crush the rivet. Make sure you're on the rivet on both ends. And get it crushed enough to where it's going to hold that in there. And then what you're going to want to do once you've got that done is go in here very carefully, maybe with a pliers or something, and just kind of, I wouldn't recommend doing it with your fingers because you're gonna end up getting them caught and hurt. But you want them to kind of angle downward a bit. And I'll show you using my fingers, but angle them down just a bit so that when the tube goes down into the mud and pushes these up straight, they're going to still want to curve back down. So when the tube goes down through the water and the mud, they're going to try to straighten up some, but at least when you've got them pushed down, curved down that way, they'll retain some of their memory and go back down and fold into a nice little closed orange peel type closure. And there you have it. That is the installation of a core keeper in a plastic tube, very similar to the way you would also do it for an aluminum tube. Thank you.